Greetings everybody, and in this video we're going to take a look at using the texture libraries from Luxology and Algorithmic to create an interesting corrosion effect on this beautiful sink scene. So let's start with doing a quick render here. Go ahead and render this guy out. Unfortunately, I've got a nice 8-core machine here to blow through this. Not bad, a quick 12 seconds. Alright, so that's a nice looking scene. What we're going to do is we're going to work to really mess this up badly. So let's go ahead and go over to the render item here. And under global illumination, I'm just going to turn that down to 64 for test renders. This should be more than enough. And what I want to do is go into the render shader tree here, rather. And we want to select the sink chrome right here. And if we select that material, you can see it's got conserve energy, Fresnel, some specs, some reflection, and that's what gives it that very nice shiny effect. So what we want to do is we want to add something very rusty. So I'm going to go ahead and just tell it to load a preset here, and I've got my library A presets directory already set up here. So I can just click on that, and this is just a library of all the presets that are available. Now I actually loaded and resaved this one here, so we'll go ahead and bring it in, and that's going to bring in one of the kits. And a kit consists of a diffuse image and a color image. Here's the color image, you can see here. And these images are designed to work together. They're not just a grayscale version of the color version. They're actually two different images that work well together. So there's our bump displace, there's our color, happy days. And you see that when we brought them in, I'm going to go ahead and drag this entire material group here into the chrome, and now it's applied to the model. If we go ahead and hit render, you can see now it's actually going to apply some displacement, and we've got a very, very badly corroded sink there. Let's go ahead and look at the attributes of the material here. You'll see it's got its own material which just has base settings, which is what overrides all the shininess from this material underneath it in the shader tree. Then there's a displacement and the diffuse color amount. The displacement is not quite as strong as I would want. You can either drive that up here in the image itself, or in the material you can change the displacement distance. So let's just say we want to increase that by 3, so times 3. Or if you're clever enough to do the math yourself, you can just type in 12 millimeters. And you can do another test render. It only cost me 7 seconds after all. Okay, and there we go. It's starting to get a little bit stronger. That looks a little better. Now one thing you might notice is you can see some sort of seams in here, and these are tiling textures. They are nice 2K high quality seamless tiling textures. The reason we're seeing a seam here is that the preset is set to use cubic projection mapping. That's because we can't guarantee that every model has a nice UV map, and cubic tends to map pretty well on most things. Keep that in mind though, when you use these presets you may want to go in and change the projection type. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little trick. Since this is a still image, I'm going to use front projection from the camera. And that's just going to project straight out from the camera's view. We'll do the same thing here. Front projection from camera. Okay, and let's do a test render there. See how that looks. And that actually looks quite nice. Okay, again, really way too much corrosion. We want to limit that. So what I'm going to do now is show you how to use a group mask to limit the effect of the corrosion here, or of this entire material. So keeping in mind that inside this material group here, there's a diffuse, a displacement, and an entire material. Just collapse that. And that's on top of this material here. Alright? So what we're going to do is go inside the material group, tell it to add image map, and I'm going to use another one of the kit images here. So I'm going to go to thumbnail mode, and right down here, this guy is the one I want. It's going to just bring that in. Now since I just loaded that as a straight up image, it grabbed the first UV map it could, but I'm going to use front projection on that as well. Now let's go ahead and just do a test render here. You see that's going to replace the diffuse color. Whoops, a little error there. I forgot to choose the camera for front projection. So make sure when you set front projection, choose the camera, because you can also project from the light, or if you have multiple cameras, you can project from any of the cameras in your scene. So we've got to make sure we define the camera. Okay, now you can see here we're getting the that image being used as the diffuse color. So you can see some dark area here, a little bit of dark area here, and then here. That is the area that's going to reveal this material down here if we set this to group mask. So let's do that. Set that to group mask. And now what's happening is, just like in Photoshop, if you had a mask, this is masking between everything in this group and everything outside of it, which is just this material here. Let's do a render. And now you can see, you can already start to see it in the Radiance Cache pass. Very clean chrome over here where that dark area was. Clean here, but then variety of varying levels of corrosion where the image goes from gray to white. Now, if this is not enough chrome for you, one quick way to fix that is just to come up here and say, choose the texture layer and invert. All right, and now it's just going to flip. So everywhere that was corroded is now going to be clean, and everywhere that was clean is now corroded, as we can see here and here. Okay. Now another thing you can do, let's go ahead and go back. Just take us back to this image. Another thing we can do is we can sort of force a bias control on the image, and we're going to do that with a gradient. So we're going to go up here and I'm going to add a gradient channel. All right. And for now, let's just change this to driver A. I'm going to do a little trick here. I'm going to change my, and actually let's just set that to diffuse amount rather. I'm going to change my effect to diffuse amount. And you see how I can see the effect of that, just that image? Okay, so I don't have to see the entire scene. The cool thing I can do is I can bring up another one and set that to full shading. And now I can see this as it affects the diffuse color here, or diffuse amount here, and I can also see just the diffuse amount mask here. Now what I do is I'm going to go up here, I'm going to choose the gradient, set that to diffuse amount. You see it goes to full white. I'm going to set its input parameter to diffuse amount, which means it's going to read the one before it. And actually, let's do something different here. Let's set this to driver A, and let's set this guy's input to driver A. So what's happening now is this image is feeding driver A. The gradient reads driver A, which means it's reading the black and white values or the pixel values of this image, and then using the gradient to output the diffuse amount. Let's open the gradient editor, and right now you can see it just goes from 100% all the way across. Let's go ahead and click a keyframe down here at 0, and now you can see you're getting something a little bit more interesting. I can go in there, and now I'm getting what normally you would see if the image was inverted, because at 0 the value is 100%. At 100, the value is 0. So let's go ahead and invert that here. Let's go ahead and set the value to 100 and 100, and set this one to 0. All right, so now it pretty much looks like the original image did. But what we can do with that now is I can start to tweak and change how much of the image is black and how much of the image is white, like this. And now let's change that from diffuse amount to group mask. Okay, and let's go ahead and close this up, do another render. And through the magic of 13 seconds of time lapse, we can see the final result. Again, I've really clamped it down a little too much. It's no problem. We'll just come over here. And again, we just continue to modulate that. And again, what we're doing is we're remapping the black to white gradient to control it exactly the way we want. Now you can see I've got these nice sort of chunky corroded areas and then some very clean areas as it goes from one to the next. And again, using the preview viewport, you can go in and interactively get some near real-time feedback on your gradient remapping. Or in the case of my very fast computer, I can just trigger additional test renders to see that. Now there's something else you can do here that's kind of fun. You don't have to just go straight from one to the other. You can actually create spikes in between. So right now you can see it sort of slowly ramps in and then has a hard ending there. What I can also do, let's just go ahead and come over here. Let's zoom out a little bit. Grab this guy and go back. You can also just create keyframes in here like this. Okay, so what that's going to do is it's going to cause varying levels of grayscale to go from 100% corrosion to 0%, 100% corrosion, 0%. So it'll create sort of little peaks and valleys throughout the gradient image. and that's going to cause some little rings of corrosion, if you will, in different areas. Kind of randomizes it a little bit more. And there you go. So you can see that using the kits, you got a nice image, color image, and displacement image. I'm also using the kit to provide the group mask. And then using a gradient, you can completely control the effect of that mask to modulate the entire material into another one. So pretty cool stuff there using the Luxology algorithmic texture image libraries.